Welcome to PMI Manitoba's podcast series, Keeping It Real, where we talk about real stories, project insights, and community success. Check out our second episode, entitled Beyond the PMP, with our special guest, Nadine King, and our news desk team member, Shubha Junaid. So, let's dive into it.
Today, we are going to examine what it takes to build your career across various industries and continents while being true to yourself. The guest here is so special not just because she's been my instructor previously, but because she truly embodies the walking the talk. Meet Nadine King, who is a business executive, project manager, a mentor, and now a manager in financial service industry. Proud Jamaican Canadian with 15 years of rich experience of versatile industries ranging from hospitality, retail, telecom, and now finance. Nadine, welcome, and we are so glad and pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much, Shubha. And that was quite an introduction. Thank you so much for having me here.
All right, let's start with the beginning. So many of the viewers who don't know more about your story, could you tell us who is Nadine beyond the resume?
Okay, that is a great question. I have to say, Nadine is fun loving, easygoing. I am God fearing, and I'm a very humble human being. For persons who know me from childhood days until now, they'll tell you the same story. I love people, I love to be around people, I love to help people, and it just makes me feel good, being able to give back to others, whether it's through my services, whether it's through mentorship. I also operated a business in the past, so whether it's through providing employment, I just love being around people and love, I want to leave that legacy behind where I'm able to just have an impact on people's life.
From Jamaica to Canada,
Mm-hmm.
it's like two very different culture, two very different working environment. What was the transition for you both, if I can say, professionally and personally? How do you explain this?
Let's start with personally. I've always wanted to live abroad. So it wasn't necessarily Canada per se, but I've always thought, I want to live life in another country. I want to experience somewhere else. As a matter of fact, one time I told a family member that at this age, had I had things the way I want or I envisioned it in my mind, I would have lived in about 10 countries already. I just love to explore. So on a personal level, I just wanted to experience somewhere different. The transition for me wasn't quite hard again because I love people. I feel I am adaptable to situations, to circumstances, to people. I feel I can navigate challenges as they come, and so I tend to embrace that. And taking that to the professional side of things, I tend to have the same outlook. I know that there will be differences in terms of culture, in terms of workspace, that sort of thing. But from in Jamaica, I worked with persons from the international space. I worked in the hotel industry. I worked in the airport. And so I've always interacted with persons from North America or Europe or from different cultures. And so I've gotten accustomed to that interaction. So transitioning professionally was a little bit harder, I must say, because usually you're asked to start all over after building a career in your own country, then to start over. You don't always have to start over from the bottom, I would say. In my experience, as I'll share later on, I didn't necessarily start over from the bottom, but I believe the transition wasn't very smooth, but it wasn't very difficult either. So
and with this information, I was actually wondering, like, you have very versatile background in terms of like hospitality, retail, telecom, and finance. So I'm wondering, how did you manage to navigate careers so smoothly? How did you do that, Nadine?
I am going to credit that somewhat to my personality and the fact that I'm very open-minded. I'll also credit that to the fact that I believe that you can learn in every situation that you're in. And so I've always said to myself, there's something that I can learn from each job that I go into. And there are some skills that are just transferable. Right? I am a person. I like to lead. I like to model the behaviors that I want to see on my team. I love on people because people help me grow, whether I'm learning from them or they're learning from me, and so those transferable skills is really what did it for me. I felt that, if I'm able to manage in a telecommunication environment, working with people, working with customers, I can also take those same skills to a retail environment. It's really just the, how do you say, the core of the job that you need to learn. But the skills that you have as a human, as an employee, as an individual, you can transfer those skills to almost any
And
environment you go in.
this reminded me one of your lessons during class when you mentioned that hiring managers should always hire for the attitude, because skills
Exactly.
can be
taught.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So I guess you really implemented that in your life, like navigating through various industries, and you uphold that personality which
Yes.
is required to perform that job, basically managing people. Wow,
Yes.
great, Nadine.
Thank
And
you.
I have seen, Nadine, while I was scrolling through your LinkedIn profile also, that certifications might have played a big role in your career journey. Starting with the PMP, later you got CIFP. So can you tell us more about the certifications?
So I've always embraced education. It might have been taught to me from a young age. I remember my grandma going over my homework with me, or teaching me as we're driving along the roadway. She would say, "What did that sign say? Where is this place that we're at?" And so I felt from an early age that education was important. And so I kept that same value throughout my career. And so I was going from, one certification to the next. So, starting out from early, doing my first degree, then my master's degree. And then I realized, moving to Canada, having done my project management diploma with PACE, I thought to myself, well, let's just seal the deal here with having that PMP certification alongside that, because there's just so much value in being able to take on those skills, add them to what I'm already doing, and to strengthen myself here in the marketplace. So fast forward, when I switched into banking, I realized as well, because I went into banking not really knowing a lot about banking besides doing my own banking. Again, those transferable skills came in quite handy there, but the certification was needed to now strengthen that education piece, right? And so I do believe certifications are important. It helps to add that value to what you already have, and to basically show up yourself in the marketplace that, hey, I have invested some time to gain additional knowledge so that I can now support the role that I am in, and I add value to my clients wherever they are, whoever they are, and also to my employees. Definitely, I would say certifications are a valuable asset.
Many of the viewers who are watching currently this podcast must be inspired with Nadine's word that it is really, really important to upgrade yourself, whether you have cleared your examination in past 10 years or 15 years. It is never late to get a new certification and upgrade your skill. And Nadine, about your personality, you are known for people first approach,
Yes,
kind of leadership style. What's your take on leadership from your perspective? What a leader should be like in a workplace?
I think it's important that a leader lead by example, right? I think if you're asking your team, the people who are looking up to you, to do something, to deliver on, whatever goals, metrics it is that you've set, you should also be willing to take that on. You should be able to walk the walk as you talk the talk. And so I see myself as a servant leader because I put people first. I put people's interests, in my coaching sessions with my team. It's always about, okay, how can we get you to where you want to be, right? Because if you help, a famous philosopher, he passed away now, Jim Rohn, he always say, if you want more, you have to do more. And so I believe if I do more for my team, then they will also do more for me and for the organization. By yourself as a leader, you're not going to achieve much unless you have a team that's dedicated, they believe in the vision that you have, and they're working with you. And to get them to work with you, you need to work with them as well. And so I believe, empowering people, recognizing them when they've done well, motivating them, just building that relationship with you. I don't see myself as the boss that's above them. I see myself as the leader that's willing to work with them and work alongside them.
listening all these wise words and as if this revelation, but I'm sure there must be a moment, a turning point in your life which shaped you like we see you today.
Yes.
Is there any story or a turning point in your life, Nadine? I'm so curious about it.
There absolutely was. And it was before I became a leader. And maybe that was what made me, see myself as, I want to be like this person. So there was an individual in the very, very early part of my career. I'm going to say about 20 years ago. I worked in the hotel industry as an admin assistant. And so as an admin assistant to this individual, I won't say his name. And I observed him, worked alongside him for about 3.5 years. And I just observed the way he spoke to people who he were managing, whether they were managers below him, because he was a senior level manager. So to his managers, to the staff who are below those managers, to people who come in for an interview, I was exposed to a lot of those conversations. He had a certain calmness about him. He would listen more than he spoke. He would give advice, but when it's required, when it's asked for. He didn't pretend to have the answers to everything. And so he would also listen to the people who he lead. He would encourage them to make suggestions. He would encourage creative thinking, and I just saw how he navigated challenges that would come his way without a rush. Like some persons just move quickly to find a solution, while others sometimes just, take a step back, observe the situation from a different angle, and then come to a decision. And he just had this real calm yet very effective way about him. And I thought to myself day in, day out, I want to be like this individual. He was so loved yet so respected.
Yeah.
He was just an awesome leader.
And I think that's one of your personality trait, that you not only observe this person, you absorb also some of his trait, his or her trait.
You said that right, Shubha. I did.
So maybe you are silently inspiring many people in your team, like you inspired us in our classroom. And I've been always a big fan of yours. You know it very well, Nadine.
I do. Thank you. I appreciate you.
And Nadine, you're deeply involved in the community, whether you were there in Jamaica and Winnipeg. So what encouraged you to work for the community from the service point of view?
Okay, thank you. That's a good question. I think for me, it happened naturally. I grew up, I would say, very humble, right? I had needs as a child growing up. And so I've always thought to myself, I want to be able to give back to others when I'm in a position, even if I'm not yet in a position to give back. As persons would probably look and say, well, but you don't have to be rich to be able to give back. You don't have to be wealthy. You can give back even if the person is not less fortunate. They're probably just have a different need from what you have, whether it's a mentorship need, whether it's just giving back to the community. Maybe it needs cleaning up. Maybe we need hands to come together to clean up the community, make it looks good for everyone. And so I've always had that spirit of giving back. And in every organization that I've worked, I've always volunteer, to the point where when I was volunteering in one of the hotels that I worked in, you would think that it was a paid job as well, because I was giving as much hours to that volunteer role as I was giving to my paid role. But it felt like a duty for me. It felt like I am supposed to do it because God gave me good health. He gave me a place to live. There were some people who didn't have that same, I would call it luxury. Maybe it's not luxury, but I think, if God bless you, you should be able to bless others. And so I've always lived by that.
It reminded me, like, whatever you have in your capability to give back to the society, whether it's via money or knowledge or some advice, mentorship, which is very much needed these days. Okay, Nadine. So closing as we wrap up. So we are leading to our last question maybe. What advice would you like to give new young professionals who are coming into any kind of industry or field, or to someone who wanted to try on project management?
Well, I would start off by saying begin with the end in mind, which is one of the habits that Stephen Covey spoke about in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So begin with that end in mind. We know it's a difficult journey for many. I think everyone has a unique story. I think generally, immigrating to a new country, starting over, for some persons, that's what it is. The expense that comes with that, the culture shift, everything that comes along with that, it is a difficult journey. But keeping that end goal in mind, why did I start this journey in the first place, right? Keeping that top of mind, ensuring that as you go along the way, recognize that there are going to be challenges, but it's not going to steer you away from the goal that you have, right? So just paying attention to those key goals that you set for yourself. Understand that for some it's going to be a slow process, but slow and steady growth, right? As long as you're not regressing, you're progressing. That's what you want to do. Keep steadfast, keep your eye on the prize. Understand that with challenges comes opportunities as well. Staying focused. And that's one of the things that kept me going, along with some good people.
It makes a major, I can say, a milestone in someone's life.
Yes.
To what kind of surrounding you are currently, the kind of people you sit with, that makes a huge difference. Knowing your why you started that journey is really important. Thanks for reminding this, Nadine. Thank you so much for being here today. Your story is so powerful, and I'm sure the listeners and the viewers are going with their stories of knowing of why, finding out why, and why should they continue with their journey and never give up personality like yours to go ahead in the life. Thank you so much, Nadine.
Thank you so much for having me, Shiva.